Michael pressed a button on his camera and smiled. "Perfect. You look amazing, Danny." Danielle laughed, holding up the small fish she'd just caught. The sun made her hair shine like gold. Behind her, the ocean sparkled like a million tiny diamonds. It was the best day they'd had in months. "One more," Michael said, lifting his camera again. "This time, make a funny face." Danielle stuck out her tongue and crossed her eyes. Michael laughed so hard he almost dropped his camera into the water. They were on a small white boat, far from the busy city where they lived. No phones ringing, no bosses calling. Just the two of them, the warm sun and the endless blue sea. "I can't believe we almost didn't come," Danielle said, putting her fish in the cooler. "This is exactly what we needed." Michael nodded. He looked down at his camera to check the photos. The first one was beautiful. Danielle smiled, a fish, the perfect blue sky. But then something made him stop. His heart beat a little faster. In the background of the photo, behind Danielle's shoulder, there was something in the water. Something dark. Something that didn't belong. "What's wrong?" Danielle asked. She could always tell when something bothered him. "Probably nothing," Michael said slowly. He zoomed in on the photo, making the background bigger. "But look at this." Danielle came closer and looked at the camera screen. There, floating in the distance, was a gray shape. It wasn't a wave. It wasn't a piece of seaweed. It looked almost like a shadow. "What is that?" Danielle whispered. "I don't know," Michael said. "At first I thought it was just trash. But look, it has a shape, like it's something real." They both turned and looked at the ocean. The water moved up and down in gentle waves. Birds flew overhead, calling to each other. Everything seemed normal and peaceful. "Should we go look?" Danielle asked. Michael felt a strange pulling in his chest. Part of him wanted to forget about it, to keep fishing and laughing. But another part, the curious part, needed to know what was out there. "Yeah," he said finally. "Let's check it out. We're probably just seeing things. But I have to know." Danielle started the boat's motor. It coughed and rumbled to life. Slowly, they moved across the water toward where the shape had been in the photo. As they got closer, the air felt different. Colder, somehow, even though the sun still shone brightly overhead. "There!" Michael pointed. "Do you see it?" About 50 feet ahead, something gray and worn floated on the surface. It rose and fell with the waves, like it was breathing. Danielle slowed the boat down. They moved closer, inch by inch. "It's a raft," Michael said quietly. "An old raft." And he was right. As they got nearer, they could see it clearly now. A small inflatable raft. Its gray color faded and dull from salt and sun. Parts of it looked torn. Parts looked like they'd been in the water for a very, very long time. Danielle's voice shook a little. "This is really strange. Who would leave a raft all the way out here?" "I don't know," Michael said. His hands felt cold, even though it was warm. "Maybe someone fell overboard? Maybe they're still out here." They both looked around quickly, searching the water for any sign of a person. But there was nothing, just waves and sky and the lonely raft. The boat drifted closer. Michael could see something written on the side of the raft now. Letters. Faded and hard to read, but definitely letters. "Can you see what it says?" Danielle asked. Michael leaned forward, squinting. The letters were old and peeling. Some were completely gone, but slowly he could make them out. "OCN." He read aloud. "Ocean, L-A-R-K, ocean lark." Danielle gasped. "Ocean lark? Why does that sound familiar?" Michael's mind raced. Where had he heard that name before? Then, like a light turning on in a dark room, he remembered. "The news," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "Years ago, there was a yacht called Ocean Lark. It disappeared. They never found it." "Oh my God," Danielle breathed. They stared at the raft, bobbing gently in the water. It suddenly felt like they'd discovered something they weren't supposed to find, like they'd opened a door that had been locked for a reason. "Look," Michael pointed. "There's a rope." A thick rope trailed down from the raft into the dark water below. It stretched down, down, down until it disappeared into the depths where they couldn't see. What do you think is on the other end? Danielle asked. Michael didn't answer right away. He picked up a long pole they used for fishing and reached out toward the raft. His hand shook a little. Only one way to find out, he said. He hooked the pole onto the rope and pulled. It was heavy, really heavy, like something big was attached to the other end, deep underwater. Help me, Michael grunted. Danielle grabbed the pole too. Together, they pulled and pulled. The rope slowly came up, dripping ocean water back into the sea. And then they saw it, rising from the deep, covered in seaweed and barnacles, was a metal chest. The chest broke through the surface with a splash. Water poured off its sides. Green seaweed hung from it like wet hair. It was about the size of a suitcase, made of dark metal that had turned rough and brown from being underwater so long. Careful, Danielle said as Michael pulled it closer to the boat. Together, they lifted it over the side. It was so heavy that Michael's arms shook. When they finally got it onto the boat's floor, they both sat down, breathing hard. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just stared at the chest sitting between them, dripping seawater onto their feet. This is crazy, Danielle finally said. We're really doing this, aren't we? Michael nodded. His heart was pounding so hard he could hear in his ears. We have to open it. Someone put this here for a reason. He grabbed his toolbox from under the seat and pulled out a crowbar. The chest had a rusty lock on the front, crusted with salt and sea creatures. What if it's empty? Danielle asked. What if there's nothing inside? Then we'll know, Michael said. But deep down, he knew it wouldn't be empty. Things that get locked and hidden in the ocean always hold secrets. He wedged the crowbar under the lock and pushed. Nothing happened. He pushed harder. His muscles strained. Then, with a loud crack, the lock broke and fell onto the deck. Slowly, carefully, Michael lifted the lid. Inside, wrapped in plastic bags that had somehow survived the water, were 4 things. The first was a notebook. Its cover was stained and wrinkled, but the plastic had kept most of the water out. Michael picked it up with shaking hands and carefully opened to the first page. In neat handwriting, someone had written, "The journey of Sam and Victoria Hale. May our adventure never end." Sam and Victoria, Danielle whispered. Those must be the people who own the Ocean Lark. Michael turned the page. The notebook was like a diary. It told the story of 2 people who loved each other and loved the sea. Listen to this, Michael said, and began reading out loud. Day 1, we did it. We finally set sail. Victoria cried happy tears when we left the harbor. After saving for 5 years, our dream is real. The ocean is calling us, and we're answering. Day 15, caught a huge tuna today. Victoria danced on the deck. We're somewhere between California and Hawaii. The stars at night are so bright, you can see forever. Day 23, storm coming. We can see dark clouds on the horizon, but Ocean Lark is strong. We're not worried. This is part of the adventure. Michael's voice got quieter as he turned more pages. The handwriting started to look messier, more rushed. Day 25. The storm is worse than we thought. Waves as tall as buildings. Victoria is scared. I told her we'll be okay. I have to believe that. Day 26. Radio is broken. Water came in through a crack. We're trying to fix it, but everything is wet. Can't call for help. Day 27. Life raft ready just in case. But we won't need it. We won't. Ocean Lark will get us through this. The next page was the last one with writing. The words were smeared, like water had gotten on them, or like someone had been crying while writing. Day 28. We have to abandon ship. I'm so sorry, Ocean Lark. You tried your best. Victoria and I are going to the raft. We're taking the important things, our memories, our love, our hope. If anyone find this, please tell our families we love them. Tell my sister Lydia that I'm sorry I didn't call more. Tell them we were happy, right up to the end. Tell them we had the most beautiful adventure. Sam Hale. Danielle was crying. Tears ran down her cheeks and dripped onto her shirt. They didn't make it, did they? Michael shook his head, his own eyes wet. I don't think so. He reached back into the chest and pulled out the second item. It was a photograph in a waterproof case. The picture showed a man and woman on a boat, hugging each other and smiling at the camera. They looked so alive, so full of joy. The man had a scruffy beard and kind eyes. The woman had long dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Sam and Victoria, Michael said softly. The third item was 2 gold wedding rings, tied together with a piece of string. Even after all this time underwater, the gold still shined when Michael wiped them clean. Inside each ring, there were words carved in tiny letters. Forever sailing together. The last item was a map. A navigation chart showing routes across the Pacific Ocean. Lines were drawn from the California coast toward Hawaii. But the lines stopped in the middle of the ocean, right where they were now. This was where it had ended. This was where Sam and Victoria's adventure had stopped. We have to tell someone, Danielle said, wiping her eyes. Their family deserves to know what happened. But what if... Michael stopped. What if what? What if we keep looking first? What if there's more to find? The raft is still here. Maybe parts of the ocean lark are nearby. We could learn more about what happened to them. Danielle shook her head firmly. No, Michael, this isn't our story. These things belong to Sam and Victoria's family. Look at that name in the notebook, Lydia, his sister. She's probably spent years wondering what happened to her brother. Every single day, not knowing. Michael looked down at the photograph again. Sam and Victoria looked so happy. He thought about his own sister, living across the country. What if he disappeared? What if she never knew what happened to him? You're right, he said quietly. We call the Coast Guard right now. Danielle squeezed his hand. We're doing the right thing. Michael pulled out their emergency radio, the one that still worked, unlike Sam and Victoria's. His fingers trembled as he pressed the button. Coast Guard, this is the private vessel Wanderer. We found something. Something important. We need help. The radio crackled. Then a voice came through. Wanderer, this is Coast Guard Station. What have you found? Michael took a deep breath. We found the ocean lark. The Coast Guard boat arrived 2 hours later, its red stripe bright against the blue ocean. 3 officers climbed onto Michael and Danielle's boat. They looked at the chest, the notebook, the rings, and the photograph. One officer, a woman with gray hair named Captain Rodriguez, picked up the notebook very gently, like it was made of glass. Ocean lark, she said quietly. I remember this case. I was just starting my career when they disappeared. 12 years ago. 12 years. Danielle whispered. Sam and Victoria have been gone for 12 years. Captain Rodriguez nodded. They left Hawaii heading back to California. Never arrived. We searched for weeks. Found nothing. She looked at the raft bobbing in the water. Until today. The notebook mentions sister, Michael said. Lydia, does she still live around here? The captain's eyes widened. Lydia Hale? She lives in Monterey, about an hour from where you launched your boat this morning. She pulled out her phone. I'll call her right now. Wait, Michael said. Maybe we should bring these things to her ourselves? With you, of course. But we found them. We read Sam's words. It feels like we should be there. Captain Rodriguez studied Michael's face for a long moment. Then she smiled sadly. I think Sam would like that. I think he'd want the people who found his message to be the ones who deliver it. 3 hours later, Michael and Danielle stood on the porch of a small yellow house near the beach. Their hands were still salty from the ocean. The metal chest sat at their feet. Captain Rodriguez stood beside them. The door opened. A woman in her 60s stood there. She had the same kind eyes as the man in the photograph, the same gentle smile. Lydia Hale? Captain Rodriguez asked. Yes. The woman looked confused. Then she saw their faces, the serious expressions, the tears in Danielle's eyes, and her hand went to her mouth. Oh no, you found him, didn't you? You found Sam. May we come in? The captain asked gently. Inside, Lydia's living room was full of pictures. Pictures of a young boy and girl playing on a beach. Pictures of that same boy, grown up standing proudly next to the sailboat. Pictures of a wedding, Sam and Victoria, laughing and dancing. I never took them down, Lydia said, sitting on her couch. Everyone said I should move on. But how do you move on when you don't know? When there's no ending to the story? Michael knelt down and opened the chest. He handed Lydia the photograph first. She took it with shaking hands. A sound came from her throat, half laugh, half sob. This was their engagement photo. Victoria sent me a copy, but I lost it years ago in a flood. I thought I'd never see their faces like this again. So happy, so young. Next, Michael gave her the rings. Lydia held them up to the light, reading the inscription, "Forever sailing together." Victoria had those words put in after the wedding. She said it didn't matter if they were on a boat or in a grocery store. They were always sailing through life together. Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she was smiling. Then Michael handed her the notebook. Lydia opened it slowly. She read the first page, then the second, then the third. Michael and Danielle sat quietly, giving her time. Captain Rodriguez stood by the window, looking out at the ocean. When Lydia reached the last entry, the one from day 28, she pressed the notebook to her chest and cried. Not sad crying, exactly. Something else. Something that sounded almost like relief. "He thought of me," she whispered. Even at the end, "He thought of me." He said he was sorry for not calling more. She laughed through her tears. "Silly Sam. I never cared about the calls. I just cared that he was happy." "He was," Danielle said softly. "You can tell from his words. They had the most amazing adventure." Lydia nodded. She wiped her eyes and looked at Michael and Danielle. "Thank you. You'll never know what this means. For 12 years, I've wondered. I've had dreams where Sam walks through that door, laughing about how his phone died and he couldn't call. I've imagined 1,000 different endings." She touched the notebook again. "Now I know. They were brave. They were together. They loved each other right to the very end." Captain Rodriguez stepped forward. "Mrs. Hale, we'll be conducting a full investigation. We'll search the area where the raft was found. We may be able to recover more of the ocean lark and possibly your brother and his wife." Lydia nodded. "I understand. Thank you, Captain." Before they left, Lydia hugged Michael and Danielle tightly. "You gave me my brother back," she said. "Not his body, maybe, but his voice, his love, his story. That's a gift I can never repay." That night, Michael and Danielle sat on their own couch at home. They didn't talk much. There wasn't much to say. Finally, Danielle spoke. "Do you think they knew, Sam and Victoria, when they got into that life raft? Do you think they knew they might not make it?" Michael thought about the last words in the notebook, about Sam saying they'd had the most beautiful adventure. "I think they knew," he said, "and I think they weren't afraid. They had each other." Danielle leaned her head on his shoulder. "We should go sailing more often. Not far, I'm not that brave, but we should do it. Life is so short, Michael. Sam and Victoria taught us that." "Yeah," Michael agreed. "They did." He picked up his camera and looked at the photo again, the one where he'd first seen the shadow in the water. That shadow had led them to a mystery. But more than that, it had led them to give someone their family back. The ocean had kept Sam and Victoria's secret for 12 years. It had protected their story, their love, their final words. And then, on one perfect sunny day, it had decided to let them go, to send them home. 3 months later, Michael received a letter in the mail. Inside was a photograph. It showed Lydia standing on a beach, holding the 2 gold rings up to the sunset. On the back, she had written, "Dear Michael and Danielle, I scattered Sam and Victoria's ashes today. The Coast Guard found them last month. I returned their rings to the ocean. They belonged there where their hearts were happiest. But I'm keeping the notebook forever. Thank you for being the messengers the sea chose. Thank you for caring. Thank you for bringing my brother home. With love and gratitude, Lydia." P.S. Don't forget to like this story of love and loss. Share it with someone who believes in the power of closure. And subscribe to the idea that every mystery deserves an ending. Because sometimes the ocean gives back what it takes. Sometimes strangers become heroes. And sometimes a simple photograph changes everything. Michael smiled and put the letter on their fridge, right next to the photo of Danielle holding that fish, the photo that had started it all. Outside, the sun was setting. The ocean in the distance looked calm and peaceful, keeping all his remaining secrets safe. For now,